Good morning, everyone. I'll call the Human Resources Personnel Committee meeting to order for December, I have the wrong date on here.
21st.
For December 21st, 2020. Mel, if you'll lead us.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners and Chairman Barrows. Appreciate being here today. And good morning, Commissioner Coring Way from, I think you're down in Florida, so it's nice to see a different background than snow. So just a couple updates on our agenda today. I am going to not talk about the Senior Tech Admin Job Evaluation Project. There's just a little bit more work I'd like to do on the financials so that you understand some of those details, a little bit deeper dive into that. So I'll bring that back to you in our next personnel committee for you to take a look at that. But just the project has been a long-term project that started with my predecessor, and just wanted to be able to bring that project to fruition before the end of the year. So more to follow on that at our next meeting, all right?
Very good.
Okay, but just a couple other staff updates that before I jump into personnel actions that I wanted to share with you. We do have, we're rounding the end of the year with our labor contracts. We have 3 more tentative agreements that are in the works right now this week, and I should have some news from our labor groups on their final decision of what the county offered. Really modest proposals that our union partners had this year, so it'll be exciting for you to see some of those things as we bring those back as a labor settlement for you. And we'll be doing that at our, I think your last board meeting of the year was on the 29th, so I'll have that information for you.
Can you tell us what those 3 groups are? Just
Yes, it is our IUOE Facilities Group, which is the local 49ers, and then our IUOE Highway Group, which is our also local 49 represented. So, and then we have our Community Services Group, our largest group here at the county with over 190 members in it. So,
okay, it'd be nice to get that one settled.
Yeah, it will be, it will be. But really good discussions that we've had, but more information in a closed session, so.
Okay.
Okay, and then I just wanted to follow up on some of the benefit open enrollment stuff that we did this year. We, Amy Fisher, our HR generalist, has completed all of the open enrollment functions with people changing plans, adding plans, and she has completed that entire process. Actually, she did a couple weeks ago, and it's a huge undertaking for the county. And going into having a 0% increase was very beneficial to our employees going into 2021. But many of our employees took advantage of we have a minimum value plan that is a high deductible plan, and many of our employees this year chose to transition from kind of a standard plan. It's called the 2800 5600 plan to a very high minimum value plan where the family deductible is about $13,000. And we have a fairly healthy group, and many of our employees just felt like that was more beneficial for their families or as a single person to really transition to that minimum value plan. Same coverage, just a higher deductible.
When we look at that higher deductible, and you look at sort of the long term or, you know, the next couple of years, would that potentially keep the cost from rising?
Our claim, it could, because we have a healthy group. We should have claim status here in the next 2 weeks. They always go 2 months back and give us some claim status information, which will help. And that is what is one of the things that helped us going into 2021, is that we had some lower claim status. But knowing with some of the COVID, healthcare concerns that were happening, this summer and fall, some of our lower claims could be chopped up or chewed up.
Okay.
Right.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Commissioner Coring.
Yeah, Mel, a couple of questions, and if you can't answer them, it's not a big
Sure.
deal. But what if if they're switching to that high deductible, in essence, plan, are they, what kind of savings are they seeing each month? Is it a couple $100s? Is it more than that? Or, I mean, where are they seeing the savings? That's one question. And then the next question is, if it's a $13,000 deductible, I know that some of the plans, the county pays for half of the health savings account, and the employee has to put in the other
Right.
half. Does that mean that the county is putting in half of that
Yes.
13,500 or whatever you said it is? I guess.
Ye-
Did you understand my question?
Yes, I do. And Commissioner Coring, you are correct. You know, the county does do a higher contribution for those minimum value plans, whether you're a single or whether you're a family. So the financial, how do you say, the kind of the financial strategy behind when we changed all of our plans in 2019 was to afford employees more contribution into their HSA or their VIBA account. So if you do have a higher deductible plan, then the county contribution is higher going into those plans. So, yes. And Paul, your first question, I don't know exactly what the savings will be, but that'll be something that I can research and bring back to the group, if that's all right with you.
So just another question, Mr. Chair. So then in some of the employees shifting to a higher deductible, if you will, plan, is that beneficial to the county overall, or is it more expense to the county?
Well, I think if we have a healthy group, and those singles or those family members are going to that higher deductible plans, you know, there's that's huge out-of-pocket expenses for those employees. So our claim status should go down with people taking that risk of going to those higher deductible plans. So kind of goes back to, gosh, do we have more healthy employees on our plan that feel secure enough that they could jump to a higher deductible plan, thus lowering our overall claim status? Does that make sense, Paul? Or does that help?
Yeah, it does. So I'm assuming then, you know, if somebody is choosing to go to the higher deductible plan and then choosing maybe not to run to the doctor for everything that
Right.
happens, that would be beneficial to the county,
Yes.
I would think, because the less claims we have, the better shape we're in, I would assume. Yeah.
Yes,
So
you hit the nail on the head right there.
Well, I would think too, to my earlier point, that with that higher deductible, there's less risk for that insurance company
It is.
because the family's accepting more of that risk. So from both ends, I think there's some pluses for us.
And
the
we have
county.
that, right, and we have that cost sharing with our health consortium, which is really beneficial to us as a larger group within that, in that cost sharing with resource training and solutions. And then the next thing that I wanted just to celebrate a little bit is I think we have talked about this before in smaller group meetings, but we recently finished a leadership program with Dr. Robert Sikora called Leading with the Helm. I don't know if you guys can see this, but he has a new book, and we as a county have worked with Dr. Sikora, and I'll just pass this around if you wanted to see his book. And I can get you copies of that book if you are interested, but it was a very specialized training program that we had 20 of our employees involved in a weekly virtual training with Dr. Sikora and members of his training team, and it was called Leading from the Helm, or Grab the Helm, he calls it, and it was really more of a personal approach to some of the work that Dr. Sikora has done with the county with our strategy map and our organizational priorities. And we've gotten incredible reviews and raves from our employees being able to be a part of that. And it was something that we piloted for Dr. Sikora, and he has now really launched it to many of his clients to be able to have that program. So it's very intensive, hour and a half every week for 12 weeks we were in this program. So wanted to share that book with you. If you do want copies, just let me know, because it is a good, a simple read, but it's really important. So
We should mention that Tim Hool is quoted in the foreword here.
I think I am too, somewhere in there. So
you?
yeah.
See here. Just
But
looking
he's
at
been
this.
in a really good part.
Dr. Sikora has a unique ability to translate theory to practice, and you remember saying that, Tim? Very good.
Right, but if you desire to have a book, just let me know and we can get you a personal copy from Dr.
I'd like to see
Sikora,
one.
so.
Yeah, I'd like one.
Okay, perfect, I'll get you them then. And then one other thing that Tim and I will be talking about this week is when the coronavirus went rampant and the federal government made some decisions on to expand the benefit of the FMLA Expansion Act, or FMLA Act, they also expanded it because of the need to cover people that may have had daycare issues, or they needed to care for a child, or maybe their school was closing, they had to do distance learning. Well, we've been hit with all of those here at the county, and so we don't know if the federal government yet will be expanding that leave. It does expire at the end of December, actually on December 31st. Those that are currently involved in a leave would certainly go through with their 12 weeks that they're eligible for. But until, we don't know if the leave will be expanded or not. So Tim and I will be reviewing that later this week.
Okay.
Excuse me. Looks like Rosemary has just joined us as well.
Okay, good.
Rosemary, are you there?
Yes, but I don't know that you can hear me.
We can
There,
hear you.
yeah.
We can hear you, Rosemary. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, everyone.
So there was two parts of that FFCRA. There was the leave part, and then there was the pay part. And they, under the pay part was the emergency sick pay provision for emergency or essential workers. So we, again, don't know if that'll be expanded or not, but we will keep you abreast on kind of those developments that are happening.
Okay, that should come out pretty quickly if it's
Yes.
expiring at the end of the month here.
But I just pulled an article just written this morning, and I would assume there's some decisions between the Trump administration and the Biden administration on those continuation of the expansion of that law, so.
I think mostly what I've seen, and Administrator Hool, you can
Yeah,
speak to this too, but I think everything that they're doing now is more on a short-term basis so that Biden, President-elect Biden, will have the options to do whatever he wants to do under his administration.
right,
I
right.
think that's what I'm kind of seeing.
Right. There's the
currently.
likelihood, Commissioner or Chairman, that it will be expanded, or it'll be, how do you say, stretched into 2021, but we don't have all the details yet.
Yep.
It is highly likely, so.
Okay,
Yep. And that is all. Oh, let's go through just your personnel actions. Commissioner Coring and Commissioner Frenzy, and I can email those to you, but Commissioner Coring, I had emailed you knowing that you were traveling, so you should have that in your inbox. Just you'll notice that we don't have any replacement staffing at this time, but we do have some notable promotions on our report. We do, with the retirement of our captain for our sheriff's office, that has created some domino effect of some transition here. So in January, we don't have the exact promotional date yet, but Andy Gallus, who is currently our lieutenant for the patrol division, he will be, he has accepted the promotion for the captain position. Then that opened up his position as lieutenant. Troy Nash, who is currently our sergeant for our LADED or Drug Task Force, he's a sergeant down there. He started with us as an investigator from, I believe, the Brainerd or Baxter force. Also on the Drug Task Force. He will be taking our lieutenant position, most likely will oversee all of the patrol division, replacing Andy Gallus. Then we have two new sergeant positions. One is Derek Lavoie, who takes a sergeant position replacing Troy Nash, overseeing all of the LADED stuff. He's currently investigator on the team, or he was investigator on the team. And then we do have a backfilled position and a promotion for a sergeant of Aaron Cronquist, who was a patrol deputy, takes a patrol sergeant role, replacing a sergeant that has stepped down into a patrol position. So a lot of movement happening in our sheriff's office. Always happens when somebody decides they need to retire. And I think you guys were able to celebrate with Captain Meyer last meeting with his retirement, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And these are all at the recommendations of Sheriff Goddard.
correct, yep. They go through a competitive interviewing process for several of the positions. Yep. Any questions for me?
Commissioner Coring, Commissioner Franzine, any questions for Mel?
No questions in open session.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Doug, any questions?
Any questions? Okay, that is all I had for
Anything
today.
else? Administrator Houle? Very good, yes, we would appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, members, and
Mr. Chair, are we
Commissioner Coring,
closed session?
He's asking.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, are we going to have a closed session or?
not today, we're not scheduled to have that. Perhaps, I don't know if we're scheduled for the 29th to have a closed session?
probably because of labor
Yeah,
negotiations.
we will.
So the 29th, Commissioner Coring, it looks like we'll have a closed session.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't know that Commissioner Coring or Commissioner Franzine would have heard that because I wasn't at the mic, but the question was whether or not the chair wished me to update you on the stimulus package that just passed, and so I'll give you the MICA quick summary, if you will. Direct payment checks of up to $600 per adult and child, subject to income limits, not yet stipulated. I had heard somebody say that it was for those households earning less than $75,000 a year. Not sure about that. Aid for struggling small businesses, including more than $280 billion for the forgivable Paycheck Protection PPP loans that were out there. $15 million in dedicated funding for live venues, independent movie theaters, cultural institutions. $12 billion for minority-owned and very small businesses. $300 per week for enhanced unemployment insurance benefits for 11 weeks from the end of December through mid-March. You may recall that there was some extended unemployment benefits in the first CARES Act, and it was $600 per week, and it created a fair amount of consternation in the business community about whether or not it was cheaper for you to collect unemployment, or better for you to collect unemployment or work. We always want to make sure that there's an incentive for people to work. And so I'm not sure how the $300 will be received, but it's half of what it was in the previous one. Then they have $25 billion for rental assistance and an eviction moratorium extension until January 31st. That would be at the federal level. There still can be state actions. I believe the governor has weighed in on this as well. $82 billion for education providers like schools and colleges, including aid to help reopen classrooms safely. $10 billion to help with child care assistance, $13 billion in increased SNAP benefits. By raising the SNAP benefits by 15% for 6 months, would not expand eligibility. The bill would also expand the pandemic EBT program to families with children under age 6, send $400 billion to food banks and food pantries through the Emergency Food Assistance Program, Send $175 million for nutrition services for seniors, such as Meals on Wheels, $13 million for the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, $7 billion to bolster broadband access to help Americans connect remotely, $20 billion for the purchase of vaccines so they can be available at no charge, as well as another $8 billion for vaccine distribution, a tax credit to support employers offering paid sick leave. It appears that it also includes some money for state highways, struggling transit agencies, Amtrak, and airports, $22 billion for health-related expenses of state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, $2 billion to support inner-city buses. There is no funding for state and local governments beyond the health-related expenses. That will turn out to be a very narrow category, I'm sure.
They didn't define, like the rental assistance, that it was going to go to the owner of the property rather than to the renter.
I don't know that yet. Historically, what happens is those money tends to flow into nonprofit agencies like Lutheran Social Services. It's a circuitous route to get there, but that's whose hands they normally end up with, is people who have been in the rental assistance program for quite some time and are experienced doing it. In our area, Lutheran Social Services does a lot of that work.
I would hope they would direct it to the owner of the rental property.
Historically, it's directed towards the tenants to assist them in paying the rent to the owner of the property.
And we've seen a problem with that. So that's a concern, because we
Yeah.
get asked by the owners of the properties to find some assistance for them because of those concerns.
I think it should be in the form of rental vouchers, but I'm not sure about that. If it's in the form of cash, that could create problems. If it's in the form of rental vouchers that are given to the landlord then turns them in, redeems them for cash, that would be the better approach. I'm not sure what's in the bill.
And I know they haven't made a decision on the qualifications for that $600 per family, I think is what you said. Previously, 75,000 and 150,000 were based on individuals versus couples. I don't know if they're keeping those same qualifications. I know there's discussion in DC about that.
I heard it reported this morning as 75,000 per household. I'm not sure if there's a distinction between married and single like there was originally, so I only have sketchy details at this point, because I think it passed last night. I'm not sure that the president has signed it into law yet either.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Any questions for Administrator Hool?
Mr. Chairman, I will say that, Mr. Hool, thank you for that update, and you certainly do keep me on my toes. I know the word of the day is circuitous. Now I'm going to have to go home and look up that definition.
You know, in Cushing and St. Matthias, Commissioner Coring, that just means in a roundabout way.
If I said circuitous down at St. Matthias, they go, what the H?
All right, if there's nothing else, I will call the meeting adjournment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Coring, Commissioner Franzine. Paul, don't enjoy that sun too much down there. Is that John Ward's place behind you there?
No, his is about 6 doors that way.